Coming up next, Sitting at 30 takes you downtown for the weekly luncheon meeting of the City Club of Portland. Live weekly coverage of City Club is made possible in part by TCI and is produced through the facilities of Portland Cable Access. Now we join the City Club for this week's program.
Good afternoon. I'm Lloyd Anderson, President of City Club. Welcome to another Friday program. Today we focus on the state of Portland's police department and say goodbye to Portland's Chief Moose as he faces new challenge and police work in the state of Maryland. Friday on July 30th, join us for a program on one of Portland's hot topics, urban planning. This program will feature John Frigonessi, principal with Frigonessi and Calthorpe, and Larry Beasley, co-director of planning for the City of Vancouver, British Columbia. It'll be here at the Multnomah Athletic Club. This will be our last program until September 10th. The club is taking a summer hiatus during the month of August. Joining us in September for a fine program, a series of programs starting at that time. In the meantime, watch your bulletins for information about a new fall chef series and your new membership directory. We're in need of more members of an affordable housing research committee chaired by Clyde Doctor. It should be an interesting study, and anyone interested is certainly invited to participate. Our board host today, seated at the head table, is Don Williams, member of the Board of Governors and Chief Operating Officer of Schwabe, Williams and Wyatt. He will ask the first question of our speaker. Following Don's question, we'll open the program to questions from City Club members in the audience. Please identify yourself as a member and ask your question. No speeches, please. Broadcast of City Club programs this quarter is made possible in part because of corporate underwriting from CH2M Hill, Weyerhaeuser, and Pacific Care of Oregon. We're grateful for their support. Charles Moose was appointed Chief of Police for Portland in July of 1993. His tenure has not been without controversy, but he's weathered it well and moved on. Now literally so, in leaving Portland and assuming the chief's role in Montgomery County, Maryland. That's a suburb of Washington and Baltimore. Visions of SUVs and strip malls sound a far cry from Portland. He started with the Bureau in 1975 as a patrol officer and moved up through the ranks. He was Deputy Chief of Operations immediately prior to his appointment as chief. He's been a strong supporter of community policing, an ongoing program for the last 11 years. During his time in Portland, he achieved a master's degree in public administration and a PhD in urban studies and criminology at Portland State University. He's a member of 19 local, national, and international organizations, including being chair of the Regional Drug Initiative program here in Portland and board of director of 8 other organizations, both local and national. A busy man. During his tenure, we've seen a number of major shifts in public resources in Oregon. More police, more jails, longer sentences as public safety concerns have dominated much of the debate over the direction we should take in the use of tax resources. And we've seen a more active role by Congress on criminal justice and law enforcement matters that have in the past been the jurisdiction of state and local government. Chief Moose's departure comes with when major crime in the city is down and the police have apparently achieved the timely cracking of a serial murder case. Chief, what's next? Please welcome Chief Charles Moose.
Thank you. Mayor Katz, Congressman Blumenauer, City Club members, other distinguished guests. Certainly is an honor and a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. And Mayor Katz, I want to make special note that I guess in some ways it is quite a pleasure that the hot topic in Portland is land use. There was a time when the hot topic was the Portland Police Bureau, and we're more than happy to step aside and let the City Club work on land use issues. I'd like to take just a couple of minutes. For those of you that caught a little bit of the news or realize that we all look different in person as opposed to television or newspaper, ask the interim police chief, Chief Lene Burke, to please stand. Also attending today from my staff, Assistant Chief Mark Parisi and several other Police Bureau members. Could you all just raise your hands so people can know who you are? And I wanted to just take this time, since I have the floor, to also introduce a special person, a person that's given a great deal of guidance and direction, insight to me over the years. From the time that I first realized that I should step in her office, I think I was a stumbling, bumbling sergeant. Got my act a little better together, went to her office a lot more as a lieutenant. When I made captain, I tried to move into her office so she could help me. But quite frankly, then, as chief, I've just really had the special occasion of just going and sitting on her front porch and talking to her about things that I should do or shouldn't do and the state of the city and what's next in terms of trying to make Portland better. Certainly, Mrs. Edna Robinson. Edna, thank you all those. Really appreciate it. When I was invited to come to speak before you today, it was prior to any indication that I was going to be changing jobs. The topic really was, can you talk about the state of the Bureau, talk about policing in Portland? And I just want to remind us that the state of the Bureau, the state of policing in Portland remains the same as when I talked to you over 6 years ago. There remains a duty in the Police Bureau, a duty of no retreat, that there is not a situation, there's not a problem, there's not an incident where you will find Portland police officers not willing to step up and trying to find a way to address that problem. We may be a lot of things, but we are not bashful. The Police Bureau always would be, always is available to assist, defend, and comfort our most important client, and that is the victims of crime. That is why we work, that is why we do what we do, to be there for victims of crime. And if you need indicators about have we done that, just let me run through a few. Reduce crime and reduce fear of crime. Since June of 1993, Part 1 reported crime in the city of Portland is down 18%. At the same time, the certified population in the city of Portland in 1983 was 471,325. 1998 certified population, 509,610. So for those of you that have had to do graphs, had to do math, then we've got a graph and you know what it looks like. Population going up, crime going down. Not always what that graph looks like, but that's what it looks like in the city of Portland. But some will say, so what? Reduction in crime is a national trend. But we also know that survey data tells us that people feel safer, and again, the city is continuing to grow. I find it quite fascinating now that the issue most often talked about in the King neighborhood is gentrification. We're not talking about homicide. We're not talking about gang activity. People are talking about things are going too well. People are moving in. Now, I understand all of the issues and the ramifications to gentrification, and I want to be respectful with regards to that. But in terms of talking about crime, the mayor and I much rather talk about gentrification than shots fired or drive-by shootings. But still, there are some that will say, so what? We have reductions in police calls for service, fewer calls about shots fired, fewer drive-by shootings, fewer calls about open market drug dealing, fewer calls about street prostitution, and major, over 34% reduction in auto theft. But there's still some that would say, so what? Portland, people in Portland like to know, what have you done for me lately? What have you done that's special? Well, counting those, including those that are off on short-term injuries, and added to the fact that we have over 100 different police officers in probationary training status, staffing in the Portland Police Bureau is at 96%. Our goal is to be over 100%. So the mayor is the first one to say, so what, when you talk about 96%. We have daycare services available for employees at the Justice Center. Maybe that doesn't mean anything to this group, but there's not another police agency in America that has those services available to their employees. We have an entry-level four-year college degree requirement for new police officers. Ours is an outstanding job, but it is also very complex. But I can tell you quite frankly, it is good to have a headhunter for our entry-level employees. Most organizations use headhunters to find the CEO or someone in top management. We have to have a headhunter for entry level. And I can tell you that Portland police officers, when you see a new one, it's because they selected to join the Portland Police Bureau, because those employees could be a police officer in any police agency in the United States of America. But they have selected to be part of your police agency in the city of Portland. Crime is down. Our contacts, our traffic stops, our confrontations, they're up. Our internal affairs investigations are down. And I guess any of you that have followed anything going on in the national trend, any of you that looked at situations in New York City and other places where they have also reduced crime, you'll see that those might not be the same correlations. But in the city of Portland, the police officers are solving problems. And they're not solving those problems at any cost. They're solving those problems by targeting behavior, by looking at patterns, by understanding trends, by reading maps, by using computer maps. They're not targeting based on race. They're targeting based on solving problems. So we're solving problems, crime is going down, but the complaints are also going down. We've also had an excellent use of our budget. We use it, but we don't overspend it. And we also like for you to note that since June of 1993, the Portland Police Bureau has received over $26.6 million in federal grants, additional assets coming into our community to help make our community safer. We're using enforcement, interdiction, and prevention. I mentioned the Auto Theft Task Force with a 34% reduction in stolen cars. The Youth Gun Anti-Violence Task Force, several thousand arrests in downtown and Old Town to address problems and concerns expressed by community members. We have a very active gang reduction unit. We are a national trainer for GREAT. There are only 4 national training sites in the United States. We have a very active family services division working on domestic violence, child abuse, elder abuse, things that impact families, things that make a difference in long-term producing good citizens. We certainly also have a very active DARE program working with our schools. You may see the data, you may look at the reports, and if they can find one young person that attended DARE and now they're using drugs, some people want to pretend that DARE doesn't work. But let's not forget that DARE puts a police officer in front of young people, gives us a chance to interact. But selfishly, what it does for me is it brings back to me a police officer that has had a positive interaction with young people in our community. If you only knew how many negative interactions our police officers had, you'd understand the value of them having 2 or 3 hours of positive interaction with young people where they can actually realize that most of our young people are good people, despite the statistics and some of the things that you see in the media. Certainly, our Police Activities League remains very active. Our crisis response team made up solely of citizens going out to help other citizens, and our crisis interdiction team where officers go out and do everything humanly possible to establish rapport with an individual that may be suffering from a mental health crisis so that we can bring that to closure without the use of violence. Certainly, we have the Metro Pursuit Agreement where all of the police agencies in the metro area have brought some agreement and recognition that as people move throughout the area, we must communicate, we must have standard procedures to address those very critical issues. We certainly have the metro area non-discrimination agreement where we're actively addressing concerns and issues with regards to real or perceived problems about the issue of racial profiling. And certainly we have the live media coverage agreement where the local media has agreed to work with us to assure that the officers and community members that find themselves involved in a barricaded felon or crisis situation have cooperation so that everyone can end those situations as safely as possible. But there's still those that like to say, so what? But I can also remind you that we just completed our successful Portland Police Bureau Training Academy. This hasn't been done locally in over 20 years. I can also tell you that the International Association of Chiefs of Police recently recognized our traffic division by presenting the Portland Police Bureau with its Chief Challenge Award, that we've had a 30% increase in drunk driving arrests. We continue to expand our photo radar. We have overall a 38% increase in number of tickets written by our entire workforce. I can also tell you that we've finished 3 national community policing conferences, and we're hosting the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. And that conference starts tomorrow. We will have over 2,000 African-American chiefs, leaders in the law enforcement professions visiting the city of Portland to talk about their business, to talk about how Noble plays a key role in moving policing into the 21st century, not just in Portland, but nationwide. And certainly, our facilities. Maybe not a big issue to some of you, but to the men and women of our workforce, having decent facilities, the Justice Center, East Precinct, Northeast Precinct, refurbished North Precinct, and refurbished Southeast Precinct, makes it a joy to work here. And I can tell you, for all of the things they did in recruiting me to Montgomery County, the one thing they didn't do was take me to the facilities. But as I talk about all those wonderful things, don't let me neglect to say that one of the reasons we were able to accomplish all of the things that I've listed, and the list is much longer, the real burden was trying to narrow it down for a presentation. But none of it would have been possible without the understanding, the leadership, the poking, the plugging, the asking, so what, by our police commissioner, better known to you as the mayor of the city of Portland. And at this time, I would like her to come forward so I can present her with the Police Bureau Medal of Merit. The Distinguished Service Medal, hopefully it means as much to Mayor Katz as it means to us in the Police Bureau. Because I can tell you that not everybody gets one. I worked there 24 years, and I think they felt sorry for me because they finally slipped me one yesterday. But they are rare. We're extremely proud of them. And Mayor Katz, in all sincerity, we have been successful since you've been mayor of the city of Portland. But the reason we've been successful is because you have continued to ask, you've continued to listen. When we can actually rationally and intellectually explain why we want to do some of the things that we want to do, then you say okay. When we can't explain why we want to do something, she also says no. And that has been very good for the Police Bureau, so thank you so very much. But we're still back to saying, so what? And I can tell you that I also find myself saying the same thing, because problems do remain. We continue to face a real issue with regards to drug use by our youth. Certainly, according to the 10th edition of the Regional Drug Initiative Drug Impact Index, the percent of arrested juveniles testing positive for drugs quadrupled since 1992 in Multnomah County. So we must find a way to address this issue. Domestic violence continues to increase. It is the hidden killer among us. It knows no economic, social, racial, or ethnic barriers. And the greatest number of victims are our young women, 18 to 24 years old. We continue to see the data. We continue to show our disgust with the numbers, but I'm not convinced that we're putting our money or our energy to address the issue. A man's home is not his castle. People in our community deserve the right to be safe from domestic violence. I must encourage you to put this on your radar and to keep asking until we drive those numbers down, and eventually until we drive those numbers out of our community. Traffic continues to be the #1 thing that our police commanders hear when they go out in the community. Congestion, lack of politeness, drunk driving, speeding. But I guess the only thing is, they don't come from Lake Oswego to speed through our neighborhoods. It's us. We're doing it to ourselves, but it remains a major issue. Property crimes, most importantly, fraud. If I was to go into the numbers about the fraud that's occurring in your community, I think some of you would be devastated. The mail theft, the false computer-driven checks, technology is making it all easier. But when you've got major institutions, Wells Fargo Bank, losing tens of millions of dollars to fraud, then tell me that you're not feeling some of it. You may not have anyone doing anything to your credit cards or to your checks, but I can tell you that false charges show up on my American Express card. And they're very nice about it, and they say that they'll make it go away, and we're not going to fight about it, but somebody's paying for that, and I believe I'm paying for it. They just have this nice way of hiding how I'm paying for it. Internally, I also know that we need to continue to ask questions about our workforce diversity. Minorities, women, people that understand the different cultures and speak the different languages of our wonderful community. We may be at 90%, 96% staffing, but we're not near as diverse enough. And as my wife would remind me, women make up 52% of the population. I think we turned the corner at about 16% in the police bureau, and we're one of the almost leaders in the nation. So we've got to have more diversity in our workforce. Internally, training, education and training. Firearms, we can never be proficient enough. Communication skills, we've got miles to go, and I think we do a terrific job. But there's much, much more to our communication skills for us to explore. Our ability to learn to disengage, and then certainly our ability to survive, our ability to go to work and come home. Because we do have people in the city of Portland that are willing to take a life of a police officer. And that is totally unacceptable, but that also says we must train, we must prepare our people, because they are facing people that have no sense of understanding and no appreciation for life. And I would hope that ultimately we can develop a training facility to facilitate these needs, not only for the Police Bureau, but for all of the police agencies in the metropolitan area. And I certainly want to be invited back for the opening of our 6th precinct in East Precinct, and I'll put that challenge out there. East Precinct is a wonderful facility, but it is our biggest and busiest precinct, and that precinct again needs to be divided, and the people in East County need an additional facility so we continue to create that feeling of neighborhood. But so what? I guess the police are only part of the puzzle. Community policing has shown us that. Community policing has also shown us that drug treatment works. The RDI drug index also shows that drug court mandated treatment reduces rearrest rates to less than 1/4 of the untreated level. So drug treatment works, but there's still people on waiting lists to get drug treatment. I've been a member of CODA on their board of directors for over 8 years, Comprehensive Options for Drug Abusers. CODA treats over 1,000 patients a day, but there's still people on the waiting list. CODA has been forced to expand into the city of Eugene. No one else had the capacity to provide methadone treatment in the city of Eugene. CODA has gone there to do that, but there's also 200 people on the waiting list in that community for drug treatment. Community policing has shown us that school funding, who goes to school, who learns those lessons, has a huge impact on the criminal justice system. But school funding is still inadequate. And I guess we're going backwards. And I know it's not my arena, but I certainly hope that the thoughts that the governor is having about vetoing a bill that will allow local options, I hope he thinks about that. We need to make local decisions. It's kind of funny that it's okay for us to make local decisions about whether or not the military can recruit in our schools, because when they put that bill in front of him, he vetoed it because he thought that we should make those local decisions. So I think if we want to have extra funding for our schools, sounds like a local decision. We need to know what the scorecard is. Do we make local decisions or do we not? But we must make better decisions about our schools. We must give our young people a chance. It is absolutely insulting to go around the nation and have people hear and understand the dilemmas that we have about educating our children. And we're generally at some conference pretending that we're innovative and progressive and that we care about the future. And then they read what we're doing to our school kids. Very strange message. We're having larger classroom numbers, fewer teachers. Our teachers are not being retained because they can earn an extra $10,000 by moving one district away. And certainly our teachers are not being respected. Community policing has also shown us the importance of housing. Housing is very inadequate. And it's not the housing for you folks. I'm not talking about where you live. I'm sure everyone in this room is doing just fine. But it's the housing for our low income, our new community members, often referred to as immigrants. That title probably goes with some of the forefathers of you people in this room today. But we still have new people coming to our community, but we're not taking time to ensure that they have adequate housing. And the police are often put up front to address and deal with homelessness. We are sent in to address issues with regards to people living in parks, under bridges, in camps. And somehow the police then become the bad guy and everyone else is let off the hook. Well, I keep checking my organization chart and I keep checking my portfolio and I keep checking my budget and nobody's giving me any money to do housing. But every time there's a homeless problem, they turn to the police bureau and they look at us and they paint us as bad guys. We need to continue to address low-income housing in our community. And certainly the whole issue about equal opportunities for jobs. Adequate pay, the living wage, the gap between the haves and the have-nots. The numbers are out there. The gap's just getting larger. It's just becoming easier and easier for the haves to turn their head and not see the have-nots. I certainly want to be cognizant of the time, but I'm often reminded of a thought, a vision. As a deputy chief, when Chief Potter and I would walk over to see the mayor, it was my first experience going over. We generally had some kind of agenda, some need, or we're going over to answer a series of questions about our performance. But on that trek from the Justice Center to City Hall, there was a lady that lived there in Lounsdale Park, a homeless woman. And every time we would walk over there, no matter what we were talking about, what we were strategizing, how we were talking about how we were going to approach City Hall, Tom would always slow, and we would say, good afternoon, good morning. We would speak to this homeless lady. And initially, I didn't quite understand. I thought, we've got to get this business of going over to City Hall. We've got to work on this strategy. But the message was, we always need to take time out to speak to this person, because we were probably the only people that spoke to that woman that day. Thousands of Portland citizens passed her and somehow refused to see her, somehow wanted to pretend that this person doesn't exist. And I'm afraid we're just all too guilty of doing that. And I encourage you to do a better job. That Portland is far too nice of a place. We think far too much of ourselves for us to have the homeless problem that we have in our community. But for those of you still that want to say, so what? I'll tell you, so what? Without changes in our health care, without adequately funding our drug treatment, without adequately funding our schools, without doing a better job of creating jobs and creating housing for our low income, your police, the Portland Police Bureau, will have to do more. We'll have to arrest more people. We'll have to be a larger agency. We'll have to have a bigger jail for Sheriff Noley, and we'll have to have more prison space run by Governor Kishopper. And we will have more violent confrontations when the police go up against the people that you have chosen to make have-nots. And ultimately, I guess you'll come back and you'll say there's something wrong with the police, and if we could just fix them, Portland would be better. But I'm here to say it's more than just fixing the police. We have this great tendency, and we take a lot of joy in judging, monitoring, and reviewing the police. And inside the Police Bureau, we take a great deal of pride. So our tendency is to do more with less, to find the money to make something happen, to be innovative, and to seek to please. So we'll cut corners, we'll play the shell game, we'll read the data, and maybe things will look like it's okay. But we also need to ask the question, where is the apex? At what point will the police not be able to make things look okay any longer? In essence, the police cannot improve community livability without adequate partners. Problem solving is more than just arresting people. Drug treatment works. Let's put our money into it. An educated population provides an improved workforce. Let's put our money into education. An improved workforce creates fewer crimes, makes us all feel better, makes Portland a safer community. We need adequate housing. Proud neighborhoods also foster less crime. Jobs and a fair wage will result in a smaller gap between the haves and the have-nots. That will result in fewer confrontations. That will result in fewer angry people in our community. Ultimately, that will result in less crime. In short, the state of the Bureau is interwoven with the state of the city, the state of each neighborhood, and the state of each man, woman, and child. Please discontinue the practice of somehow separating the Police Bureau from the rest of our wonderful community. If we retreat from one neighborhood, if we retreat from one community of interest, or if we retreat from one child, then we have retreated from the well-being of the whole. The Portland Police Bureau can accomplish tasks. It can reduce numbers, it can increase numbers, it can meet goals, and it can solve problems. But the safety and well-being of our community is based on a holistic strategy by all people that live, work, and visit the city of Portland. And all of those people must share the common values of partnership, continuous improvement, and respect for mankind. If we want to talk about vision points for the 21st century, please help us assure that technology helps our police officers and does not further distance us from face-to-face interaction with community members. The telephone and the automobile were great technological advances, but in hindsight, they help separate the men and women from the men and women in the community. Let's assure that our deployment changes match community changes. If indeed the major issue in the King neighborhood is gentrification, then maybe we need some of the police officers in Northeast Precinct to go to East Precinct, where there are far more people willing to shoot community members and police officers. We must question our focus, and we must listen to community feedback. Let's assure that the Portland Police Bureau belongs to the community. It was said, we are the people, and the people are the police. Policing is a profession of service. It is not a profession of excitement. Let's talk more about the service provided by the men and women of the Police Bureau, as opposed to the heroic one time, I can't believe I did that, but since I did, I'll take a medal. Let's not focus on those stories. Let's assure that the Portland Police Bureau continues to earn the respect of our community. With the young people that just graduated in the academy, I spent an hour with them talking about several different topics. And I asked them to give me a list of entitlements now that they were full-fledged Portland Police Bureau members. About the third thing to make the list was respect. So we put the list up, But as we came back through, I think the light finally came on. Respect is not an entitlement. You must earn respect each and every day. The Police Bureau members need to know that and remember that, but it also goes vice versa. Community members need to understand that respect is not an entitlement. You must earn it. We must assure that the Portland Police Bureau continues to earn the trust of our community, because much like respect, trust is also not an entitlement. I guess if I had to come up with a new motto for law enforcement, maybe we should try something like, with liberty and justice for all. Wouldn't that be much better than to serve and protect? And I have here in my notes a suggested memory, but I guess I want to say a demand, because it seems like people react better to demands than suggestions. Must be the law class that my wife took. Just demand that we somehow have the guts, the wherewithal, the integrity to remember we need to remember Nathan Thomas. If we as a community forget that tragedy and refuse to understand that communication, resources, all of the things that led to that tragedy, from the young man that felt that he was obligated to take Nathan as a hostage, to the different and varied reaction and your feelings about that from the Police Bureau. If we refuse to look at the complexity of that situation and forget to remember all of the things that we must continue to do so that we never have another Nathan Thomas. And we need to always remember and honor the response by Nathan's family. The way that they looked at that situation, we should look at that when we're confronted with a way and a question about how do you handle your life. Do you confront? Do you get angry? Do you demand payment? Do you somehow think that litigation is going to make America a better place? Dr. Thomas and Martha McMurray, to this day, continue to encourage the Portland Police Bureau to grow, to change, to be thoughtful, to look for strategies to resolve conflict in our community. They are the only people that consistently call me and asked, are we doing more things to make our police officers better equipped to deal with conflict in the community? For most people, it's just a passing thought. But for Dr. Thomas and Martha McMurray, it is a commitment about how you live your life. And the city, the Portland Police Bureau, must remember Nathan Thomas. The Portland Police Bureau has done an excellent job over the years. The Bureau and the city have certainly been very good to me. But now I know we're in that territory where somebody will say, so what? But I would say that the Police Bureau asks for your guidance, your support, your understanding. Policing in a democratic community, in a democratic society, is very complex. There are many, many mixed messages, and there are many conflicting goals. It is not an easy task providing services where you pay us to make you behave. But if the police and the community work well together, we can make a difference. And when you talk about working well together, I would just ask you to indulge me and help me thank the one person that has worked well with me and made my life a joy. Sandy, thank you. You know, they told me you guys needed an exciting finish, so got a $20 bill. Anybody like to have this? Can I get a show of hands? Anybody? Okay, couple of hands. What about now? Would you? Anybody like to have it? It's all crumpled up. Anybody still like to have it? Okay. What about now? Anybody like to have it? Same people like to have it? Well, I guess no matter what I do to it, it still has value. Still $20, isn't it? Well, in the Portland Police Bureau, we too are often dropped, crumpled, ground into the dirt. It's because of our actions, our decisions, and the circumstances that come our way. And quite frankly, there are those moments when we feel worthless. But then we remember that people in our community, people like you value us, you love us, and you respect us. So no matter what has happened, we still have value in our community. So no matter how dirty or how clean, how crumpled or how finely creased we may be, please continue to support the men and women of the Portland Police Bureau. It would be the one thing that you need to do, and I hope it's the one thing that you understand you must do. We're going to do the best that we can. We want to make you feel safe, and we want to make you proud of us. But we're going to need your help. We're going to need your support. And with that help and with that support, I can stand here and I can guarantee. As a matter of fact, I can actually promise, because one of the things they tell you as a young police officer is never promise anything if you can't keep your promise. Because once you make a promise on the street and you break it, you lose that credibility with the people on the street. But I'll tell you, if you continue to support, if you continue to value the men and women of the Portland Police Bureau, the state of the Police Bureau will continue to improve. I want to thank all of you for your time, your attention, and may God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Chief, I was pleased to see that you have a master's degree in public administration at Portland State. On a biased note, I think that's a very useful degree from a wonderful institution. You are therefore knowledgeable about various forms and structures of city government, and in fact, you have worked as a major department head in the City of Portland's commission form of government. This is the same form that many prior City Club and Chamber of Commerce reports and many government experts have said is outmoded and dysfunctional for a major large city. In fact, Portland, I think, may be one of the only, or if not the only city that still has this structure. And my question is in two parts. Number one, how has this affected your ability to do your job as police chief? And number two, what specific recommendations would you make to change it and make it more effective?
Okay, thank you. Well, I guess it's got nothing to do with crime, huh? I guess I'll try to how's it affected me as police chief? Well, I've been very fortunate. I work for the mayor. And I guess if the mayor was the city manager or queen or whatever title you want to put on it in your new form of government, I still would work for the mayor. I don't really envision any kind of government where a bureau head would work independent without some type of civilian oversight. Our U.S. military works extremely well, but it also has civilian oversight. And I think that that piece of structure needs to remain for sure. What title you put on it, I guess, could be your call. I also, as you indicated, took those courses, have had those debates about form of government. But I would encourage the city of Portland, the people that live here, to again look at the facts. Look at the bond rating for our city. Ask how much money the city has got in the bank in case of catastrophe. Is the way things are being run, is it working? Do we get the potholes filled? Are the tops on all of the parking meters in Portland? Because there are lots of major cities throughout America where the pole's there, but the head's been knocked off and government can't figure out how to put the tops back on. So I guess instead of getting caught up in what somebody else has got, we just need to continually ask ourselves, what is working here? And if we get to the point where government doesn't work in the city of Portland, then get rid of it and fix it. But if it's working, if you're getting things done, if there continues to be new leadership coming up, and again, the list of accomplishments, I think the city of Portland can and has held them up nationwide, and they understand that scrutiny and that review, and the awards, they're scattered throughout county government, they're scattered in the mayor's office, the awards, the compliments, the people that continue to come here to ask, how did you get this done? That continues to be something that happens in the city of Portland. And so my message would be, why get in all of those people's way about changing government when the fact that what you really want them to do is to work? And right now, they're working. So I would just compliment what's being done and continue to say that maybe all those people that have changed should consider coming back to this form of government, because there are many, many more cities in America that aren't working as opposed to cities like Portland that are working.
B.J. Seymour, City Club member. Recently, the City Council adopted a policy of non-discrimination against transgendered persons. And I'd like to know, what is the Portland Police Bureau doing to implement that policy?
Well, I guess that's, we've had a non-discrimination policy in the Police Bureau. It was my understanding that the city's policy, where it was brought into question, it has always remained the policy of the Police Bureau. We continue to work with and listen to employees in the city, in our Police Bureau, and are very adamant that there's no discrimination, whether it's race, gender, transgender, height, weight, hair, no hair. It is just not acceptable. But also know that we still have people in our community and in our police bureau that feel it is their place to look down on someone that is different, to question someone's ability to change, someone's ability to feel different about the world than they feel. So we will continue to confront those individuals and tell them what is acceptable and what is not acceptable behavior. I must apologize, there's not been any 2 or 3 things that the Police Bureau's done as a result of the City Council decision, but we continue on the course of saying that all community members and all Bureau employees are welcome. I think there's great benefit in us all being different, and that we will deal with anyone that does anything to harm or belittle or somehow hurt someone that is different, whether it be, again, any form of discrimination.
Erwin Mandel, City Club member. Just briefly, and preface, I think it takes a former New Yorker, perhaps, to fully appreciate the Portland Police Bureau. You pointed out very clearly how over the years the population of Portland has increased, yet we've had a decreasing crime rate. However, if we take a look around today at the planned and sometimes unplanned growth in resident population, businesses, 3 new hotels going up downtown, you know, the River District, McAdam District, we're looking forward to a really sharp increase in the size of our population, resident and visitor. Now, it's my understanding that the Police Bureau is authorized, what, at 1,041 sworn officers, I believe? No, sworn? 106. And I've also been told this figure was put into effect some 12 years ago. I don't know, I haven't been here that long, but quite some time back. Well, in the light of the expectations for growth in business and resident population, as you look forward, leaving Portland, do you think that the Bureau might require an increase in the authorized sworn strength of the officers?
Okay, thank you. I guess it really comes back to some of the comments that I was trying to make earlier. We can and we will do it all if you think you can afford to have the Police Bureau do it all. But I'd much rather prefer that we focus on education, that the people that move here have jobs, that we have good citizens, because I think with good citizens, we can self-police, and I'm not sure that adding more police is always the answer. Because when you add more police, even the stumbling and bumbling of those among us will find someone to arrest for something. And so all of those costs are going to expand exponentially. So I'm not convinced that the numbers actually make the difference. I think that in several years, you know, I'd love to sit down and have the conversation with you, because the community where I'm going to be police chief in Montgomery County, Maryland, is larger than Portland. It has 850,000 citizens. They have 128,000 kids in their school district. Their school district is well funded. They have quite a bit of high tech. They have quite a few hotels, motels, residential areas. So far this year, the conversations I keep having with them as I prepare to go back there, they're still concerned because out of that 850,000 people, they've had 3 homicides. They find that unacceptable. But I also know that they had 12 last year, so it's you know, it's not a perfect place. But I tell you what, it's no doubt in my mind that if Portland finishes a year with 12, while she's mayor, she'll do cartwheels, okay? I don't care if she's got to get a personal trainer to teach her how. She will be so excited if we got it down to 12. So it might be a combination, but it takes individual responsibility and community commitment, that the community has to be also responsible for being safe. And the holistic approach is really where we need to go. Don't get caught up into we're going to add more police and add more police and add more police, because eventually when you start doing that in Portland, you're going to take away something else. And maybe we've done that in several other areas before, and so we still have problems in certain areas. How do you find that balance? How do you find enough money? But it is balanced. It is a holistic approach. I'm not gonna go there and say, give us 100 more and I can guarantee this, or give us 500 more and I can guarantee you that. That is not an argument that I'm willing to make.
I think there'll be a lot of people willing to join Mayor Katz in her cartwheels.
We got time for one more brief question.
I hope this isn't former New Yorker Day at the City Club. This year, the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy is proposing a nearly $18 billion budget for federal drug control programs. Local governments are estimated to spend about twice that. And the ratio between, it seems to be about 2/3 of that is spent on criminal prevention, on arrests, courts, and so on, and only about 1/3 on treatment. Given that it's a crime that in 20 years of drug war, drug use and drug supply hasn't seemed to change a whole lot, and it's a crime that's been defined by government, and government is the only complainant, would you care to comment on the wisdom of continuing a policy of criminalization and prosecution as opposed to going to public health treatment, prevention, education, and so on.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Paul Milius, and I'm a City Club member.
Okay. I'm, quite frankly, a very strong advocate for enforcement, interdiction, and prevention. And part of that prevention piece is certainly a public health approach. You know, the hope is that all of law enforcement takes a public health approach to addressing our problems. Yes, there are those occasions when the police have to go in and perform major surgery. But after open heart surgery, then we need to talk about the fact that you need to stop smoking, you need to take up an exercise program, and you need to change your diet. So that same approach was very successful for us in Irish court. We went in, did the major surgery. There were people that needed to be evicted. There were people that needed to go to jail. But then as you put people back in that community, they need to understand that here's an employment specialist on site. Here's additional daycare and a lunch program for the young people that are living there. All of the pieces that change the approach. Yes, America has a love affair with drugs. Will we ever turn the corner? People have to decide that who they are is okay. We take drugs because we're not happy with ourselves and we want to be somebody different. And we think for that short period of time, while we're under the influence of that drug, we are different, we are better. I still know people that think that they dance better after 3 beers. Hello. If you can't dance, you can't dance. The government has struggled with this, but you know, your comment about the government being the only, I forget the word you use, complainant. Talk to some of the families that have lost a loved one to drugs, that have seen the potential of their child be destroyed, to see their minds go off and they never come back, to see the devastation of their health. Talk to someone who's had someone drug-induced, turn on them and use a handgun and kill someone because they're in this awful state of mind. Talk to someone that's lost a relative to an automobile accident because the person operating that deadly weapon was under the influence of drugs. So I would take offense with the government being the only complainant. I know lots of complainants. And I think that we need to keep that in mind. And if we're unhappy and if we're convinced that government hasn't done it right, then let's help government. But we can't just turn our back and say that we're going to issue drugs, we're going to make it legal. And I know you didn't say any of that. But at the same hand, yes, we can continue to talk about the proper approach. But I'm an advocate for treatment, I'm an advocate for prevention, I'm an advocate for education, all of those things that eventually drive people to take drugs. And then when they get that addiction and they want to get out of it, I'm not sure that we have been there as people. And maybe government can't be there, but as people, we also haven't been there. I know that we continue to struggle finding citizens to sit on the board of directors for CODA. Ask you to come to a meeting a month, listen to the strategies and the way that CODA wants to approach providing treatment, and people are too busy to do that, too busy to participate. So it is very complex. We could spend the whole time dealing with this. I appreciate the answer. Maybe I went all over the board and missed the mark, but I just want us to be very careful. I want us to support government. The reason that number that you put out there is probably so large and is increasing is because government also at one point went backwards and reduced those numbers. I know personally during the tenure of Lee Brown when he was the drug czar, they methodically cut away at his budget. They made it impossible for him to do his job. And I don't think there's a more talented man in America to address that drug problem. Very compassionate, very sensitive human being, very knowledgeable, very talented with regards to law enforcement, how you make that work. But when he had that job, they stripped him of the resources he needed to get it accomplished. I think General McCaffrey has been very successful in getting some of that built back, but I don't think America has stepped up behind him. I know that in the city of Baltimore, under Mayor Smoke, there was a lot of talk about legalization. I know he had some wonderful ideas about addressing the drug problem in that city, but I can also tell you that the city of Baltimore had 300 homicides last year, so something has not gone right in that community. So for us to be very careful in our way we posture the drug issue in our community.
Thanks very much. Our best to you in your new job.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.